It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, I'm going to say something. I don't know if you're going to agree with me, depending on the type of week that it's been for you. But for me, it just feels like it's going fast. It's already Thursday.
There's like the news is like all small, but like coming in like gigantic weight. I just feel like there's been like 100 things in the Steelers Now group text today that they just won't like. I looked up and you texted me and I was like, is it 5 o'clock already? Shit. Like it just like the day just flew.
Yeah. So all right, there we go. Not only the week flying by, but today specifically flying by for you as well. The first thing that I want to mention from the YouTube
This always
comments
happens though, like on the days in the off season where I have something to do, then like the next, like everything just gets crammed into the next day. So yeah, this is what it is.
This not related at all, but this made me laugh as I was going through the YouTube comments looking for questions and stuff. Not related at all, not even a question. But Big L 261991 said Smitty laughs like a boss baby villain.
I don't even know what that means.
I like the movie Boss Baby. I've seen the movie Boss Baby. So like if they're saying like
I have not
there, then I get it. If it's something different, then I don't. So you'll have
follow
to let
up.
me know if
what do I laugh like then? Why only like do I not have a distinctive enough laugh to get a comparison?
I don't know. I hear all the time about how I have a very distinctive laugh. So and it's contagious as well. But all right, Alan, let's dive into some stuff here. A lot of questions that we're going to discuss.
Before we talk about anything that matters about the Steelers, can we talk about the Florida Pro Day today?
Sure.
Do you know what I want to talk about the Florida Pro Day?
No.
You're not aware?
No. Is it could be something about the big dude there?
They have a 464-pound defensive tackle.
Yeah, so like I knew of him, but I didn't know what happened specifically today.
He weighed in at 464.
Okay.
And then ran.
Where's number 21, by the way, which is hilarious.
And then ran like a pretty decent 40 at 464. 6'6", 464.
What's pretty decent for what did he run?
It was like a 5'6" or something like that.
Okay. What's his name again?
Desmond Watson.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And he wears number 21, which is like I just always find hilarious. And it throws me off, but
5'9", 5'8", 640 and a 25-inch vertical.
Yeah, I feel like I haven't heard anything about him this cycle. I actually didn't even know like he was coming out or anything. I thought maybe he was like, is he gonna get drafted? Like, or what?
I don't know. I mean, I've heard no hype for him. So
that's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't know he was even in this class because of that. Like, I've seen like Cam Jackson, defensive tackle out of Florida, I've seen on boards and stuff, but I haven't seen his name at all. And I was just like, okay, he must not be in this class, but. Yeah, I'm like scrolling down Pro Football Network's board here, and I do not see him like at all here. So who knows? But I'm kind of hoping he does. He definitely is a fan in me.
Yeah. The more big guys we have, the better, I think, in football, just in general. And we want big guys doing stuff.
Yeah, 100%. You mentioned Florida's Pro Day. Let's talk about Notre Dame's Pro Day. I saw a picture of Mike Tomlin at Notre Dame's Pro Day next to Ryan Clark, whose son obviously plays football at Notre Dame. What do we make of that there? Who could the Steelers have their eye on at Notre Dame's Pro Day?
Yeah, I was sitting there at Ohio State yesterday as the Steelers brass like bolted out of there after the end of the events, and I was talking to Nick Faribaugh, and he was like, "You think they're going to Notre Dame?" And I was like, "I don't know, Notre Dame, like." Maybe there isn't really a first round pick there, but like maybe. And sure enough, there's Mike Tomlin this morning. I did see a picture of Omar Khan, but I would assume the two of them have been traveling together now for a couple days. So I would assume that he was there as well. It really, I mean, when you look at it, actually like a number of good players that fit Steelers needs. I just don't know how like Benjamin Morrison and Xavier Watts are the two guys there that I think are really good players. Benjamin Morrison's a corner. had a hip injury that really limited him this year, didn't run at the combine. Not sure what, if anything, he did at his pro day. I think he's one of those guys that was like saying he was going to have his own like later pro day, if I remember that correctly.
Mhm.
Xavier Watts is a safety who's like the closest thing to Kyle Hamilton since Kyle Hamilton. Both of those guys are currently projected in the second round right now. I like them both really good players. Steelers don't have a second round pick. So, I mean,
Right.
I assume they're doing due diligence about trying to make a trade. It would not surprise me at all if the Steelers are thinking they want to make a trade to get back their second round pick somehow, some way. Like that just feels very much like a thing they would do. And the fact that they went to Notre Dame, where these two guys are both really good fits in the second round, that sort of positions the need. And we can talk about that more here as well. We talked about it yesterday a little bit, but like,
Yeah,
I think,
I love Watts, and I
Oh.
guess I wasn't really considering, like I guess we got to look beyond this year in terms of the future at safety too. Like we've been talking about what this person could do, and hopefully being like a guy that could also play in the slot for 2025. But then you look at the future with like Minka's cap hitting 26. Obviously, Deshaun Elliott right now slated to be a free agent. Juan Thornhill's just on a 1-year deal, so like theoretically they're going to need a safety as soon as next season, depending on how things go. So I think it's definitely in the cards, and I want to kind of like bring a question into this as we continue to discuss positions of need here, because somebody, I saw this in the YouTube comments, they said, not having that second round pick, how do you kind of now evaluate what box doesn't get checked amongst the needs? Or I know that we had a discussion like maybe there aren't as many boxes as last year for them to check, but still, like, is there something that kind of gets left out of that because of not having the second round pick?
I don't think there's something that gets left out because they got the wide receiver with the second round pick. So like, I don't really think so. But like, I think the one thing that's really interesting is I think both Morrison and Watts could play in the slot right away. And so if you're looking at Morrison as an eventual Darius Slay replacement, Watts as an eventual maybe Minkah Fitzpatrick replacement, I think he's probably too small to replace Elliott. But if that's the way you see these guys, then they could play in the slot right away. I mean, we've seen with Hamilton where he's played safety, he's played in the slot. Some other guys, Terrion Arnold's done some of that. Brian Branch has done some of that. Like, I think both of these guys could be that kind of versatile player. And so, like, I think we really should consider. I think we've been talking a lot about corner. I think we should really just change it to defensive back, because it seems like they're considering multiple different paths in terms of how they will fill those that need at that position group. And it doesn't seem to necessarily just be Joey Porter size corners. It seems like there's a large mix of sizes and styles that they're considering, and a lot of them are things that people are considering safeties.
And like, Jahdae Barron, I guess another guy that like could start in the slot right away, take over after
we
one
literally
season
talked
for
yesterday
Slay.
about Barron and Makuba being these, and today it's the same thing with Morrison and Watts, where I think Morrison has a better chance to stick as an outside corner than Barron does. But yeah, I mean, it's basically the same idea. And so I really think like we on a draft big board, I only have corner right now. Number one project for me, maybe this weekend, or maybe if I get some time when I'm traveling on the way to the owners' meetings, I got to get in there and add safeties. Like, it just seems very clear that safety is something the Steelers are very seriously considering. They've now seen almost every top safety in this class in person.
So to you though, is that like more of a thing, like not necessarily in consideration and on day one at pick 21, but maybe like any point after that, something we need to consider?
Well, I mean, they were Georgia for Starks. He's a first round pick. Memori in South Carolina, he's a first round pick, probably.
True.
So, like, I mean, Watts is a second rounder.
If the board fell a very specific way, I guess I could see it. Like, the thing is, like, I don't know. There'd have to be
trade back,
a run on
trade back in the first round.
Yeah.
Trade down to like 25, 26 and take a Memori.
I get potentially that's how you get that pick back that we're talking about as well. Like in the process of doing.
I mean,
yeah.
And then you're taking a deep tackle in the second round, so you're looking at like TJ Sanders or Alfred Collins instead of Grant or Harmon. Okay, whatever. Like I mean, Harmon will probably be there 25 too, but the fact that they've now had Tomlin and Malachi Starks pro day, position coach at Manwari, Tomlin at Watts, Tomlin at Makuba, Tomlin at Latham Ransom. And if Gerald Alexander is at Penn State tomorrow, where they have both Kevin Winston and Jalen Reed, then I think it's like alarms and sirens. Like they're just it's like really, really happening at that point.
Yeah, they might as well grab a megaphone.
Yeah,
we are drafting a safety.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but regardless of if they're telegraphing that, if all the kind of tea leaves that we can read here are telling us that that's going to be the case and something we need to pay attention to, what is your, do you agree with that? Like, do you think that it makes sense to invest in that position potentially as early as it seems like they're going to?
Yeah, because like I said, I don't think they have that many like boxes that must be checked. I do think they need defensive line help, probably more than one, but I think it's a really good defensive line class. I think there's a number of different directions you can take that. So yeah, I mean, trade down the first round, and then in that first 3 picks at that point, address defensive tackle, secondary, and running back. I think they're in very good shape. I don't know where you're sitting there in the 4th round saying, gotta have it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think at that point you're thinking, okay, most of this is pretty cleared up.
Let's stick with, let's say they stick at pick 21. I saw this notion put out today. They love Jalen Milroe, apparently, and they would consider drafting him at pick 21. It's one of those things where, like, I had the Chris Farley GIF reaction where it was like, you know, the idea of Jalen Milroe, okay, I can get on board with, but wait, whoa, at pick 21, you know, and my reaction completely changes if that's the case, what you're talking about, investing into Jalen Milroe. What is your reaction to that? And just let's have a conversation about it, because we've both talked about how we feel like Jalen Milroe, certainly a dart throw worth making, but at pick 21 seems pretty rich.
Well, I mean, I reported way back during the college football season that the Steelers really like Jalen Milroe and probably like him more than the consensus. So I don't have any doubt that that's true. And I know that's been talked about in other forums since then as well. So I don't have any doubt that the Steelers really like Jalen Milroe. In fact, I mean, the fact that the whole Steelers brass was at Alabama, where, you know, I mean, not the world's best Bama draft class, including the OC and the quarterbacks coach, and they took Milroe out to dinner. Like, yeah, there are other guys there, but like, it's pretty clear that trip was all about that guy. It lends some credence to the idea. I don't think the Steelers would actually do it, but because I think that is, listen, I said a long time ago that I think Jalen Milroe will creep into the first round, and I'm not super dissuaded from that idea, but I really have a hard time seeing it be the Steelers.
Can you give me, I know you love when we get put on the spot here by people in the comments, so I'll do the same for you right now. As we sit here right now, less than a month out from the draft, can you give me like a short, like where would he fall on that short list in terms of most likely pick? Like, obviously we talked about Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon, maybe Emeka Ibuka. Like, how would the board have to fall basically for him to be the guy that you think would be most likely at 21?
I don't think there's a board that I can predict that I would be looking at and saying, yeah, they should take Jalen Milroe here.
You're saying they should, but like for them to do so, like where does he rank in terms of most likely pick, do you think?
I mean, probably the most likely quarterback, but like pretty far down. I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine it happening, to be honest. Like, I just.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of,
it's possible, but like it would be a really bad move. And I don't think they're that dumb.
Yeah. I have a hard time seeing it. Like, as much as I know I've heard the same things that you did, and I wouldn't obviously doubt what you're reporting anyway in terms of how much they like him and stuff like that. But I just have a hard time seeing that they liked him enough to do it at 21. Like, I don't know. I think it had to be a very specific board, and I think if that's the case, if those players would all be gone, I still think that they would probably like to move back before selecting him at 21 anyway.
And it also doesn't make any sense. Like, I can't explain it. Here's the other thing that bothers me about it. I can't really explain it away as like some kind of smoke screen. Because I know the interest is legitimate. Why would you smokescreen? Oh, this guy that we legitimately like, we might take way earlier than we actually would. Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? Like, that's just going to get somebody else to move up and take him ahead of where you actually want to take him. So
I know that we've talked quite a bit about Milroe, but just kind of like to bring him into that same conversation we were having yesterday, where I was asking you, like, okay, like there's guys that are obviously prospects that you drop him into any scheme and feel good about, but how do you feel about Jalen Milroe specifically within Arthur Smith's scheme?
I mean, the scheme is fine. Arthur Smith likes quarterback mobility. You saw what he was able to do with Justin Fields last year. I think Milroe is capable. Like, I don't think Arthur Smith's scheme requires quarterbacks to be elite decision makers on the field, and certainly Milroe is not that, so that's helpful. But like, I mean, that's not the issue, right? Like that, like there are issues, but that's not it. The issue is very inaccurate, weirdly indecisive. And that's the problem that I see the Steelers having. Like, I don't have any reason to have faith that the Steelers coaching staff can fix those things. And it's not because I don't like them or I think they're bad at their job, but they've never done it before. And I'm a show me kind of guy. I don't believe anyone can do anything until they prove to me that they can. And they're just not something that's on their CV. Like, it's not, they don't have that in their playbook. So I'm not saying they can't, but I don't know why we should think they can.
What do you think are the biggest differences between Jalen Milroe's game coming into the NFL and what we saw from Justin Fields last year?
Oh, I mean, Fields is way more accurate. Like, significantly. That's the first one. I think the second one is just play maturity. I mean, obviously I've talked a lot about Jalen Milroe as a person. I think he is a really mature guy, but like, I think you saw in Justin Fields in this season with the Steelers, even compared to like him with the Bears, a level of savviness that he did not have when he was earlier in his career. And I'm not even sure Milroe has as much as Fields had when he was coming out. And so like that kind of experience, I think, is hard fought, and I don't think there's really any way to gain it other than going out there and making mistakes. Like, the nice part about the idea of drafting Jalen Milroe is you would not play him, right? This would be a pure draft, stash, and hope kind of situation. And maybe you would use him as like a gimmick guy or a short yardage or something like that. And you would hope that he can learn without doing. Because if you got to sit there and watch him learn while doing, it's going to be painful.
Well, and the entire reason that I asked you that, and I don't think it's a one-to-one comparison anyway, but like very clearly with Justin Fields, we know that the Steelers would have liked to have had him back in 2025. I say liked because if they loved the idea of it, they would have obviously been willing to go where the Jets were financially. So them liking, not loving Justin Fields, I think it's interesting that they are giving this much attention to Jalen Milroe as a prospect. Do you think it's just because it's getting that type of player on a rookie deal, or do you think that they view his ceiling as much higher than what we saw from Justin Fields?
Oh, you just said my favorite word, Smitty. It's like
I don't know which one. I said a lot of words. Ceiling?
Ceiling is the word of the day. Pee Wee Herman, like rah, rah, yeah. The ceiling is what I talked about this morning on Morning Rush. The ceiling to me is an essential ingredient of what the Steelers are looking for. And I don't, given the replies to my tweet from this morning on Twitter, people don't understand what that means. So let's talk about it. What is the ceiling of a draft prospect? That is what they will look like if you fix all of the fixable things that are wrong with them. If you're able to correct all of the decision-making, all of the mechanical things, all of the lack of experience things that are going wrong with that player's game, and they are now only being held back by the physical limitations of their body, how good are they? And this is very important, I think, to the Pittsburgh Steelers because they are in a division and a conference with outstanding quarterbacks. And I don't see any point in being interested in a quarterback that does not have the ceiling where even if you fix all of the flaws and the faults to be as good as those guys. Jackson Dart does not have that ceiling. His arm just isn't that good. Okay, he's never going to be Joe Burrow. But Jalen Milroe could be Lamar Jackson. That's not that big of a stretch. And so, like, I think there's... And, like, people are talking about, oh, look at the college stats. The college stats don't matter. College production, honestly, does not matter that much in this process at all. Like, I love college football. I watch the games a lot. I scout the players at the games a lot. But, like, I don't care who wins and loses. I don't care who has more passing yards. It's about the tools and the traits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hate to be that guy to bring up Josh Allen at Wyoming, right? But, like, you look at his college production, wasn't there, didn't even look great at the beginning of his NFL career. But, you know, you're chasing that ceiling, which he eventually was able to hit. And if they weren't patient with him, who knows what would have happened, but they were, and look at what the return on investment has been since then.
And not all players are going to reach that ceiling.
No,
like they're not.
No.
You're taking a chance. Jalen Milroe appears especially unlikely to reach that ceiling. He's far away from there. Okay. But like the production or lack thereof in college, it's not why I say that. Like, do you know who the most productive college quarterbacks of all time?
Do not.
Here are the NCAA career leaders in passing yards. Case Keenum, Dylan Gabriel, coming out this year, Timmy Chang, Landry Jones, Graham Harrell, Sam Hartman. Those are the guys. Now, okay, you say, well, some of those guys had long careers. How about single season? Bailey Zappi, you got Keenum and Harrell in there again. B.J. Simons. Joe Burrow was fourth. Anthony Gordon, Colt Brennan, Ty Detmer, David Klingler. Like,
Colt Brennan.
Being a good college quarterback means nothing if you don't have the traits and the tools. Just having the traits and the tools isn't enough either. But that is the one of those two things that matters.
So let me ask, because we've talked about like QB proofing the offense too. Like, so how do you weight like finding that guy at quarterback, but also saying like, okay, maybe the quarterback doesn't need to be that guy if everything else within the off, or you still have the mindset like that needs to be that dude at quarterback for it to really matter, make a difference? Like specifically for the Steelers within the AFC, obviously with the quarterbacks that they're chasing within the division and the conference. Like we've talked about QB proofing the offense, but like you just said, if you don't have a QB that hits that ceiling to make them competitive, what does it matter? Well, you know, like is it possible for everything else to be in place so good for the Steelers that it could get by with?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that second lane, right? Where like you can just try to be the Eagles and the Lions and the 49ers. And I still think that's possible, but you can't be aiming for that at the quarterback position. Okay. Because, let me rephrase that. You can, but there's no reason to be aiming for that in the first round because you also have to build the rest of the roster. Right. So, like, if you want to have the Eagles where you have this dominant roster and just an okay quarterback, then you got to use the first round picks on roster players to build the dominant roster. Then you got to go draft Will Howard or Tyler Shook on the third day or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
If you want, so like, it's not an either or question. You can do both ways. But when we look at where the Steelers sit right now, if they're going to take a chance on a quarterback, they do not have that team. So it either needs to be a guy who has that ceiling or a lesser pick so they can still be adding to the team at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm all on board with Will Howard. Go use your first, go use your third, get Will Howard in the fourth, play him behind Mason, see what happens. Like, okay, that's fine. But like Will Howard does not have that upside. He does not have that ceiling, but that's okay because you're only using a 4th-round pick on him. You can't use a 1st-round pick on a guy that doesn't have that upside.
Yeah, I guess and I don't know how the Steelers would operate here, but like, and it shouldn't stop them. But I guess the whole thing that I've brought up with taking a quarterback in this class is like, I would have the fear that they then wouldn't invest in 26 because they would want to see the guy from 25, like even if it is somebody within those middle rounds. And maybe you have a different opinion of that wouldn't be the case. Like, say they take Will Howard in the middle rounds this year, you're of the mindset that that wouldn't affect them from actually taking a bigger shot on a quarterback in 26, correct?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, I think if you're drafting a quarterback in the 4th round, your expectation is that guy's going to be a backup. And if he turns out to be better than that, you say, cool, thanks. So I don't think it has any.
But you'd think you'd have to get a look at him at some point this year, though, right? Like, as opposed, like Mason starts.
I don't think you have to get a look at him at all. I mean, you can just play who you think is the better quarterback. If you can't beat out Mason Rudolph, that should tell you a lot.
Okay, that's fair. All right, we talked about taking the shot. Got a quarterback in 26. You got DM'd this question, so we'll bring it into the conversation now. Huge fan of the podcast, which, in my opinion, is becoming the highest level of opinionated Steeler takes. We appreciate that, first and foremost. Wanted to run a question by you. All this talk about the Steelers using 26 comp picks to move up begs the question, have we seen a team do this in the past? Is there a blueprint? Can't think of any precedent. I was thinking we should look at which teams have done teams this year with a lot of comp picks do. Perfect example is the Ravens. They have 4 comp picks this year, total of 11. No way a team with such a good roster wound up using 11 picks. So it'll be interesting to see how they move around the board. Would be an interesting discussion point on a future podcast. How about this one?
Well, I don't know that I've ever seen a team do it with comp picks, but we've seen lots of teams make big, bold moves up the draft board. I mean, most infamously, the New Orleans Saints and Ricky Williams, right? In 1999, they trade their entire draft class to go up to get Ricky Williams. Now, that got Mike Ditka fired. But do you know who was employed by the New Orleans Saints in 1999, Smitty?
Oh, brother. Oh, Omar Khan.
Omar Khan. That's right.
I was like, I'm not going to know who you're talking about. I was like, wait a minute. No, I do know.
Yeah. Look, Sure, we've seen lots of these moves over the years where teams make these big aggressive swings up the draft board. So I specifically doing it while adding a bunch of comp picks, I don't know that I've seen anybody do that. And look, the comp picks alone are not going to be enough to get the Steelers from 20 to 5, but they're enough to make what you have to pay to get from 20 to 5 not hurt that bad in the rest of the draft.
And I think what the interesting part of what he said, and this isn't a question, but it's just something to keep in the back of our minds, is like, let's watch a team like the Ravens who are constantly collecting comp picks because they draft and develop really well. Those guys end up walking. They get comp picks back. How they maneuver around the board this year. They have 11 picks. Steelers right now slated to have 11 next year, right? If they get the 4 full max pick, the 4 comp picks like projected. So it'll be interesting to see how they do business and see relatively if the Steelers do something similar. But yeah, in terms of like the way that they've collected them has been interesting. The Steelers, like the way that they've gone through free agency. I don't like, do you feel like that is, I know that you wrote an article about this, but just in terms of the, like, is intentionality a good word? Is that a word?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Good. That they've gone through free agency with, where it's like, hey, we need a corner. Darius Slay's still a good corner. Also, he doesn't count against the comp formula.
Yeah, intentionality is a good word, and it's not a Police album. Synchronicity, that one was. Intentionality is just a regular word. I don't know if it's any kind of album. I don't know. I'll defer to the audience there. I do think it is intentional. I think it is intentional because of the situation at quarterback. The Steelers don't have one. This year's class is not very good. They're not in a position to get a good one with their first round pick. And they're trying to hoard picks for next year. So, yes, I absolutely think that's all intentional. To the point that Steelers have about depending on what they spend on Aaron Rodgers or don't spend on Aaron Rodgers, assuming they sign Aaron Rodgers, Steelers have like enough to make one more decent sized move. I'm kind of thinking it won't come until after the draft. Just because then it doesn't count.
Oh, is it like right? What's the date where
May
it doesn't
1st.
count? Oh, it's May 1st. Okay, for some reason I had in my head that it was all like the same thing as like the 6-1, like the post June 1 cuts. I thought it was the same.
So it's
okay. So
what
it's
is
May
that,
1st,
the Monday after the draft or something like that? Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that would make sense. All right.
I guess the week after the draft. It might just be the Monday after the draft. It may not be May 1st, but it's right about that time period.
Okay. Well, May 1st is it's actually May 1st is 1 week after the NFL draft.
It's somewhere in that week. I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
So,
but yeah, it's right after the draft that the deadline passes. So, like if you're the Steelers and you're looking at like Asante Samuel, like Calais Campbell, one of those guys that's still out there, like. Wait.
Somebody asked me about Asante Samuel before we get out of here because we're already at 30 minutes. But in terms of like why he's
has gone fast today,
why Asante Samuel is still sitting on the market, I want your opinion on that. He's never been a guy that has been a willing tackler, certainly not good at it. But now a shoulder injury too. Do you think that it is like maybe an evaluation of him? Do you think he's looking for more money, or like what do you think the reason is that he's still sitting on the market?
Shoulder injury. I think teams are a little afraid of a guy who's never a very good tackler. And coming off that, I think they're going to want to see him work. I think they're going to want him to come take visits and see him in person. And that's, I think, what has slowed down his market.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see what he ends up going. Like, does he end up saying, you know what, like, whatever, I'll just sign a 1-year deal and then go back into free agency?
I don't know that it's a lack of willingness to pay as much as that I just think it's a teams want to be sure about him.
Yeah. And I haven't seen that he's got any like visits or anything like that. So
total radio silence.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, a couple things we didn't get to today, but that's good. That just means we can talk about him tomorrow with hopefully DB on here. But Alan, until tomorrow, tell the people they can find you.
Saunders _PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. PGH Steelers Now is the site's account, SteelersNow.com. Go there, read the words so I can get paid. You sign up for SN Plus. Also, we had a couple signups this week, so that's good. Keep that momentum going over there.
I think it was Steven's endorsement in the YouTube comments.
Yeah. Well, listen, you want your podcast guy to be at Columbus and things like that. We got to pay the bills, so help us out. Really appreciate it. And subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube platform. So we continue to grow, man. I feel like we've been like 100 a day. Like it's been very steady here in this time period. So 15,300 and this is a tough one. This is a very tough one. And I
haven't looked. I don't even know what it is. So depending on who you say,
Corey Holiday. Which is, I'm like, it's what came to my mind, and I can't think of anything else now. And that's a very obscure 90s wide receiver, but 83, Corey Holiday.
Okay, so choice. Everybody's going to want me to say Heath. I'm going Louis Lips.
I thought Louis Lips was too good. Heath and Louis Lips were both.
But here's the thing,
try to go a little more obscure, you know.
For me, I don't think that I watched Louis Lips play. When did Louis Lips retire?
Louis Lips played for the Steelers he was drafted in 84, and I don't think he played with Cower, so I think 91 was his last year.
I was born in 95, so definitely didn't see him play a game live then for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So obviously know how good he was. People talk about it. My dad always talks about how underrated he was. So
one of my favorite players growing up to watch. I really, really loved Louis Lips.
Yeah.
Louis Lips, Rod Woodson, and Bubby Brister. So I didn't have all good takes. I did really like Bubby Brister. So he was not good, but the other two were.
Well, there you go. That's just goes to show you. Also, I want more 5-star reviews and stuff like that on the listening platforms, because I always have fun reading those, but we don't get nearly as many as the YouTube comments, obviously. So keep those coming. We want more Sam's Club stories like we got the other day from somebody in Flagstaff, Arizona. So keep those coming, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast from. Leave us a 5-star review, subscribe over there. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive. Do the same thing on TikTok, and then you'll find me everywhere. Zachary Smith, PGH, for Alan Saunders, and myself. Thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.